My daughter said, "Don't come to us anymore. My husband doesn't want to see you." I nodded and left. The next day, they were called to the bank. I canceled all payments for their mortgage. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. For 32 years, I had been a devoted mother. I raised my daughter Emma alone after my husband passed when she was only 7. I worked 2 jobs morning shifts at the hospital as a nurse, evenings cleaning offices, to give her everything she needed. I never remarried. Emma was my world, my purpose, my legacy. When she married Derek 5 years ago, I was overjoyed. He seemed stable, employed as a sales manager at a tech company. They wanted to buy a house, start a family, but their credit wasn't strong enough for the mortgage they needed. Mom Emma said over coffee one Saturday morning, "Would you co-sign for us, just a formality? We'll make every payment ourselves." I signed those papers without hesitation. What kind of mother wouldn't help her child achieve the American dream? The monthly payment was $2,800. I verified their bank account had sufficient funds. I trusted my daughter completely. The first year went smoothly. They moved into a beautiful 3-bedroom colonial in a good neighborhood. I visited every Sunday for dinner. I helped Emma paint the nursery pale yellow when she got pregnant with Sophie. I was going to be a grandmother. My heart had never felt so full. But small things started changing. Emma's texts became shorter, less frequent. When I called, she sounded distracted. "Mom, I'm busy. Can I call you back?" She rarely did. Sunday dinners became every other week, then once a month. Derek started answering the door with tight smiles, checking his watch, as if timing my visits. "Are you two all right financially?" I asked Emma one afternoon while folding baby clothes. She stiffened. "We're fine, Mom. Why would you ask that?" "Just checking the mortgage. We're handling it." She snapped, then softer. "Sorry, pregnancy hormones, everything's under control." But I'd been a nurse for 3 decades. I knew when someone was lying, the tension in her shoulders, the way she avoided eye contact. These were tells I'd seen in patients hiding pain. I started checking my bank account more carefully. I was listed as co-signer, so I had access to payment records. Every month, like clockwork, $2,800 left their account. Everything appeared normal. Perhaps I was being paranoid. Perhaps I was just a lonely old woman afraid of losing relevance in my daughter's new life. Then came Sophie's birth. I rushed to the hospital with flowers and a hand-knitted blanket. But when I arrived, Derek stood blocking the door to Emma's room. "She needs rest," he said. "Family only right now." "I'm her mother," I whispered, stunned. "Immediate family," he clarified. "Come back tomorrow." I left confused and hurt. The next day, Emma texted, "Mom, Derek thinks we need bonding time as our new family unit. Give us 2 weeks, okay?" 2 weeks stretched to 4. When I finally held baby Sophie, she was already 6 weeks old. I'd missed everything. Her first days, her first smiles, the exhausted nights when new mothers desperately need help. Had I been erased so easily? The visits became increasingly uncomfortable. Derek dominated conversations, constantly mentioning how expensive everything was. Diapers, formula, daycare costs. Being a parent is so much harder than we thought, he'd say, looking pointedly at me. Was he suggesting I should offer money I was already responsible for their mortgage? Then came last Tuesday. I knocked on their door at 6 p.m. holding a lasagna I'd spent the afternoon preparing. Emma's childhood favorite. Derek answered, his face dark. "We need to talk," he said, not inviting me in. Emma appeared behind him, Sophie crying in her arms. My daughter wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom," she said quietly, "don't come here anymore. Derek doesn't want you around." I stood frozen on their doorstep, the lasagna dish, burning my hands through the oven mitts. "What, Emma? What are you? You're too controlling." Derek interrupted. Always questioning our finances, our parenting. We're done, but I just want to help. Don't come back, Emma said, her voice breaking. Then she closed the door. I stood there for 3 minutes staring at the wreath I'd helped her hang last Christmas. Then I nodded to the closed door, turned, and walked to my car. My hands shook so badly I could barely start the engine. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3:00 a.m., I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The mortgage payments had stopped 3 months ago. I sat in my dark kitchen, the laptop screen illuminating my face, scrolling through the payment history with trembling fingers. January paid, February paid, March paid, then nothing. April missed. May missed, June missed. How had I not noticed? Because I'd been checking their account activity, not the actual mortgage sarer. They'd been clever about it. The money stayed in their account instead of going to the bank. $2,800 3 months. $8,400 they'd simply kept. But here was the nightmare. I was the co-signer. My name was on that loan. My credit, perfect for 40 years, was now being destroyed. I clicked over to my credit monitoring app. My score had dropped 89 points. There were late payment notices threatening letters from the mortgage company that had been sent to their address, not mine. I pulled up my email there, buried in my spam folder. I found them. Automated warnings from the bank. Payment 30 days overdue. Payment 60 days overdue. Payment 90 days overdue. Foreclosure proceedings may begin. They'd used me. My daughter and her husband had used me, drained my creditworthiness, and then discarded me like trash when I was no longer useful. Or worse, before I could discover what they'd done. Don't come back, Emma had said. Now I understood. They were trying to cut me off before I checked the mortgage status. Before I realized I was financially ruined. I made coffee at 4:00 a.m., my hands steadier now. Shock was giving way to something colder. I'd been a nurse through the AIDS crisis, through hospital budget cuts, through countless nights holding the hands of dying patients. I'd raised a child alone. I'd survived my husband's death. I was not fragile. I opened a notebook and began writing. First, I listed the facts. Co-signed mortgage, $425,000. Monthly payment, $2,800. Payments missed $38,400 total. My credit score damaged. Foreclosure risk imminent. My legal responsibility total. If they continued missing payments, the bank would foreclose. They'd lose the house, but so would I, and I'd still owe the debt. My retirement savings, my own small home, everything I'd worked for could be seized to cover their loan. Had they planned this from the beginning, I thought back to Derek's careful questions 5 years ago about my retirement accounts, my property value. Had I been a mark all along at 9:00 a.m., I called the mortgage company. A representative named Patricia answered, "I'm a co-signer on loan number 444728891, I said calmly. "I've discovered the primary borrowers have missed 3 payments. "Yes, ma'am. The account is seriously delinquent. We've sent multiple notices to their address, not mine. I need to know my options." Patricia's tone shifted, becoming more sympathetic. "As co-signer, you're equally responsible for the debt. You could make the payments yourself to avoid foreclosure. Or you could," she paused. "This is delicate, but you could remove yourself as payer if you're set up for automatic payments. What happens then? The primary borrowers would receive immediate notification that payments have stopped. They'd have 30 days to make arrangements or face foreclosure proceedings." "I see," I said. "Thank you, Patricia." I hung up and sat very still. I had been making the payments through automatic transfer from my account directly to the mortgage company, a backup system I'd set up just in case. For the past 3 months, while Emma and Derek pocketed their $2,800, I had been covering their mortgage without even realizing it. The automatic transfer had prevented foreclosure, but it had also hidden their theft from me. They were stealing from me twice. Once by not paying again by letting me pay while keeping their money. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Please respect our boundaries. We need space. Space. They wanted space while draining my bank account and destroying my financial future. I looked at my notebook again. The facts were clear. My course of action crystallized like ice, forming on a winter window. I opened my laptop and logged into the mortgage payment portal. I found the automatic payment settings. My finger hovered over the Cancel Automatic Payment button. If I pressed it, their free ride ended. Within days, the bank would contact them. Within weeks, foreclosure proceedings would accelerate. They'd lose their house unless they could suddenly produce $11, $200. The 3 months they'd skipped, plus the current month. But I would be free. My money would stop flowing into their pockets. The consequences of their actions would finally land on their shoulders, not mine. Was I being vindictive? No. I was being rational. They had made their choice. They had stolen from me, lied to me, and thrown me away. Now they would learn that actions have consequences. I pressed the button. The screen confirmed. Automatic payments canceled. I closed the laptop and took a long sip of cold coffee. Tomorrow I would visit my lawyer, but tonight I had taken the first step toward protecting myself. Let them learn the hard way what happens when you betray the person who loved you most. Thursday morning, I sat in the law office of Marcus Chen, an attorney I'd known socially for years. His office overlooked the harbor. Tasteful, expensive. The kind of place that assured you serious matters were handled here. Barbara Marcus said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. This is unfortunately more common than you'd think. Family members exploiting co-signers. He looked up at me over his reading glasses. But I want to be clear about your position. You have every legal right to stop making payments. You also have every right to pursue them for the money they've essentially stolen from you. Can I prove they stole from me? I asked. Legally, Marcus pulled out a yellow pad. Let's walk through it. You co-signed in good faith. They explicitly told you they'd make all payments. You have that in writing. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to Emma's text from 5 years ago. Mom, we promise we'll handle every payment ourselves. You're just helping us get approved. You won't have to pay anything. Marcus photographed the screen. Good. Now they made payments for how long 27 months then stopped. And during those 3 months of non-payment, did they communicate any financial hardship to you? No. They specifically told me everything was under control when I asked. Marcus made notes. So they lied to prevent you from discovering the problem. That shows intent to deceive. Did you discover they were still depositing money into their accounts during this period? I showed him the bank statements I'd obtained. Derek's paychecks, Emma's part-time income, all still coming in regularly. Their account balance had actually grown by nearly $9,000 over those 3 months. They had the money, Marcus said slowly. They chose not to pay while letting you, the co-signer, bear the risk and the credit damage. He leaned back. Barbara, you have grounds for a civil suit for fraud and financial abuse. But let me ask, what do you actually want here? What did I want? I'd thought about this for 3 sleepless nights. I want them to experience the consequences of their choices, I said. I want my name off that loan, and I want them to understand they can't use people who love them. Marcus nodded. Then here's my advice. Continue withholding payment. The bank will contact them within days. Let them panic. Let them try to figure out how to come up with 4 months of mortgage payments. $11, $200 without your help. When they come to you begging, and you'll have leverage. Leverage for what? To negotiate your removal from the loan, to get repayment for your credit damage and the months you unknowingly covered to ensure they can never financially exploit you again. He paused. Or you can push for foreclosure and sue them for the full amount. But that's nuclear. It would destroy them. I don't want to destroy them, I said quietly. I want them to become responsible adults." Marcus's expression was sympathetic. Sometimes those amount to the same thing. I left his office with a folder of documents and a clear strategy, but as I drove home, my phone rang. Emma. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, it rang again. Then a text. "Mom, we need to talk. Call me." So it had begun. The bank must have sent them a notice already. That was faster than I'd expected. Another text. "Mom, there's an issue with the mortgage company. Can you call me right now?" I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and sat staring at my phone. Part of me, the mother who'd changed her diapers, who'd stayed up all night when she had fever, who'd taught her to ride a bike, wanted to call immediately to fix the problem to make everything okay. But another part of me, harder and colder, recognized this for what it was, the first move in their manipulation game. They didn't want to talk. They wanted to control the narrative, to spin some excuse to make me feel guilty for causing problems. I took a photograph of Emma's texts and sent them to Marcus with a note. "It's starting." His reply came within minutes. "Don't respond yet. Let them sit with the anxiety. They need to understand the gravity of what they've done." I turned off my phone and went into the grocery store. I bought ingredients for the dinner I'd planned. Pot roast, the kind I used to make every Sunday. I would eat alone tonight, but I would eat well. Let Emma and Derek spend their evening frantically calling the mortgage company, checking their payment history, trying to understand how their carefully constructed deception had collapsed. I was done being their safety net. The fall was going to hurt. Friday evening, someone hammered on my front door. Not knocked, hammered. I was reading in my living room, a cup of tea cooling on the side table, when the violent sound shattered the peace. Through the peephole, I saw Derek. His face was red, contorted. Emma stood behind him, holding Sophie, her eyes puffy from crying. I opened the door but kept the chain latched. "Yes, what the did you do?" Derek shouted. The profanity shocked me. He'd never spoken to me that way before. "The bank called us. They said our payment stopped. They said you canceled the automatic transfer." "Lower your voice," I said calmly. "You're frightening your daughter. Answer the question." He shoved against the door. The chain held. Emma stepped forward. "Mom, please, what's going on? Why would you stop paying? We could lose our house." The audacity nearly made me laugh. "You could lose your house, Emma. You stopped paying 3 months ago. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Emma's face went pale. "What? No. You've been depositing $2,800 into your savings account every month instead of paying the mortgage." I said, my voice steady. "I've seen your bank statements. You've been stealing from me while letting me cover your payments automatically." "We were going to catch up," Emma said desperately. "We just needed a few months to save. Save for what your account balance went up by $9,000. You weren't struggling. You were stealing." Derek's anger shifted to something more calculated. "You're a co-signer. If we lose this house, your credit is destroyed too. You'll lose everything. Is that really what you want to punish us by punishing yourself?" "My credit is already damaged by your 3 months of missed payments," I replied. "I've consulted an attorney. I have options. You, on the other hand, need to come up with $11,230 days or face foreclosure." "We don't have that kind of money," Emma cried. "Then you shouldn't have spent 3 months stealing from me." I started to close the door. Derek slammed his palm against it. "You're a vindictive old woman. We invited you into our lives, let you be part of our family, and this is how you repay us." The reversal was breathtaking. They were the victims now. I was the villain. "Let me be clear," I said, looking directly at my daughter. "You told me not to come back. You said Derek didn't want me around. You cut me out of your life. That was your choice. Now you face the consequences of your other choices, the financial ones. So you're just going to let us lose our house." Emma's voice broke. "Let your granddaughter lose her home. What kind of grandmother does that?" The guilt trip was expertly deployed. I felt it land, felt the familiar tug to fix things, to sacrifice myself for my child's happiness. But Marcus's words echoed in my mind. They need to understand the gravity of what they've done. What kind of daughter, I said quietly, steals from her mother? Silence. Sophie whimpered. Emma rocked her automatically, but her eyes were locked on mine. Angry, desperate, disbelieving. We'll sue you, Derek finally said, for elder abuse for withholding help when you're on the loan. My attorney welcomes that lawsuit, I replied. It would give us the opportunity to present evidence of your fraud to a judge. Do you really want that? Derek's face shifted through several emotions: rage, calculation, fear. He grabbed Emma's elbow. Come on. We're not begging this bitter old woman for anything. They left. I watched through the window as Derek practically shoved Emma into their car. He was yelling at her. I could see his animated gesture, see Emma crying. Then they drove away, tires squealing. I closed the door and locked it. Then I walked to my bathroom and vomited. The confrontation had taken everything out of me. My hands shook so badly, I had to grip the sink to steady myself. I'd stood my ground. I'd protected myself. But God, it hurt. That night, I called my sister Helen in Arizona. I told her everything. She listened without interruption, then said simply, "Come visit me for a week. You need to get away from this. I can't just leave." "Yes, you can. You've done what needed to be done. Now let the system work while you recover. Please, Barbara." The next morning, I booked a flight. Marcus agreed it was wise. "Let them stew," he said. "Let them try to figure out solutions without you. Right now, you're too accessible. Distance will help." I spent a week in Arizona. Helen and I hiked in the desert, cooked elaborate meals, watched old movies. I turned off my phone except to check messages once daily. Emma called 17 times. Derek sent dozens of texts ranging from apologetic to threatening. I ignored them all. The desert sun baked the poison out of me. By the time I flew home, I felt like steel. The letter was waiting when I returned home. It had been hand-delivered, slipped through my mail slot. Emma's handwriting on the envelope. Inside 3 pages. A letter that alternated between apology and manipulation so seamlessly that I could almost admire the craft of it. "Mom, I know we made mistakes. I know we hurt you, but I'm begging you to remember who we are to each other. Remember when I was sick and broke my arm? You held me all night in the hospital. Remember teaching me to drive? Remember my wedding day when you told me you'd always be there for me?" Derek made bad decisions. He convinced me to skip the payments temporarily. I was wrong to go along with it. But Mom, we're still your family. Sophie is your granddaughter. She'll grow up not knowing you if you continue down this path. Please, let's meet and talk. Let's find a solution together. I'm not asking you to pay. I'm asking you to give us a chance to fix this, to fix us. Don't throw away our entire relationship over money. You're better than that. You taught me that love is more important than anything else. Please call me. Please. I love you, Emma." I read it 3 times. Each time I identified the manipulation tactics more clearly, the emotional appeals to shared history, the subtle blame shifting to Derek, the implicit threat about losing access to Sophie, the suggestion that my boundaries were about money rather than betrayal. The final play to my own values, love over everything. It was masterful, and it almost worked. I felt the old pull to make peace, to smooth things over, to sacrifice my needs for my daughter's comfort. But I'd spent a week in Arizona talking with Helen, who'd reminded me of something crucial. You can love someone and still refuse to let them destroy you. I took a photograph of the letter and sent it to Marcus. His response was immediate. Classic manipulation. Don't respond emotionally. If you respond at all, keep it purely factual. But I wasn't going to respond. Not yet. They wanted engagement because engagement meant negotiation, and negotiation meant I'd eventually cave. They'd spent years learning how to push my buttons. Instead, I went to my weekly church coffee group. I'd been a member for 15 years, though I'd missed meetings during the crisis. When I walked in, several women immediately surrounded me. "Barbara, we've missed you." I'd always kept my personal life private, but something in me broke open. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the need to stop carrying this alone. Over coffee and cookies, I told them everything. The response stunned me. "My son did something similar," Patricia said quietly. "Used my name on credit cards, destroyed my credit. I had to cut him off completely." "Family can be the cruelest," Joan added. "My daughter stole my mother's jewelry after promising to keep it safe. Sometimes, love isn't enough." Margaret, a retired judge, leaned forward. "You're doing exactly the right thing. They need to face real consequences or they'll never change. You're not being cruel, you're being a parent." The validation was overwhelming. I'd feared judgment, but instead found solidarity. These women understood that protecting yourself from exploitation wasn't selfishness. It was survival. Over the next week, my support network strengthened. Marcus connected me with a financial advisor who helped me analyze my retirement security. My doctor prescribed something mild for the anxiety that woke me at 3 a.m. Helen called every other day just to check in, and I started documenting everything. Every text from Emma and Derek went into a folder. Every phone call, which I still didn't answer, was logged. Marcus said if this eventually went to court, my detailed records would be crucial. Emma tried different approaches: apologetic texts, angry voicemails. Finally, she sent a photo of Sophie with the caption, "Grandma, when will I see you again? That one hurt the most, using my granddaughter as a weapon." I showed it to Margaret, who shook her head sadly. "They're getting desperate." "That's actually a good sign. It means they're finally understanding you're serious." "But what if I never see Sophie again?" I asked. "Then Emma will be teaching her daughter that manipulation and theft are acceptable family behaviors. Is that the legacy you want for Sophie?" It wasn't. I wanted Sophie to grow up knowing that actions have consequences, that trust matters, that people can't be used and discarded. I wanted to be a grandmother someday, but to a woman who'd learned integrity, not manipulation. So I stayed silent. I let Emma and Derek spiral in their own anxiety, and I fortified myself with the community I'd found. People who understood that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destruction. 3 weeks after I'd canceled the payments, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Barbara, this is Patricia from the mortgage company. I wanted to inform you that the primary borrowers have made a payment arrangement. They're current as of today." My heart sank and soared simultaneously. They'd found the money, but from where that question would be answered sooner than I expected. They appeared on my doorstep Sunday morning. I was gardening, wearing my old jeans and straw hat when I heard the car pull up. Emma and Derek both dressed nicely. Emma carried Sophie, and in Derek's hands was a bouquet of roses, my favorite. "Mom," Emma called out, her voice bright with false cheer. "Can we talk, please?" Every instinct screamed at me to send them away, but I was curious. Where had they gotten $11, $200? What was their angle now? I removed my gardening gloves slowly. "You can come in for 15 minutes. Inside, they arranged themselves on my sofa like we were having a normal family visit. Derek placed the roses on my coffee table. Emma bounced Sophie on her knee, making sure I could see my granddaughter's sweet face, her tiny hands reaching toward me. "Mom," Emma began, her voice warm. "We came to apologize. Really apologize. What we did was wrong. We got overwhelmed with expenses and made terrible decisions. We should never have stopped the payments without telling you. We were embarrassed," Derek added, his tone humble. "We didn't want to admit we were struggling." Pride, you know, but we should have been honest with you from the start. I sat in my armchair, hands folded, saying nothing. Emma continued. We managed to scrape together the money. Derek's parents helped us. We're current on the mortgage now. Everything's okay. Ah, Derek's parents, so that's where the money came from. I wondered what story they'd told them. Probably that I had unreasonably abandoned them. The thing is, Derek said, leaning forward with practiced sincerity, we want to move forward as a family. This whole situation has been so stressful for everyone, but especially for Emma. She's been crying every night, missing you. Emma's eyes welled on cue. I have Mom. I miss you so much. Sophie asks about you. She points at your photo. We made mistakes, but we're family. Family forgives. There it was, the core manipulation. Family must forgive always, regardless of what's been done. What exactly are you proposing? I asked calmly. That we put this behind us, Emma said. We restart the relationship. You come for Sunday dinners again. We move forward with trust and love. And the mortgage? I asked. Derek waved his hand dismissively. We'll handle it. We've learned our lesson. Derek's parents taught us that family has to stick together through tough times. They were so disappointed in us when they found out about the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding, I repeated flatly. Poor communication, Emma corrected quickly. The point is, we're fixing it. We want you back in our lives. Sophie needs her grandmother. I looked at my granddaughter. She was beautiful, alert, reaching for a throw pillow with chubby hands. My heart ached, but I forced myself to see past the emotion to the mechanics of what was happening. They hadn't said, we'll pay you back for the credit damage. They hadn't said, we'll remove you as co-signer. They hadn't said, we'll set up automatic payments we can't skip. They said, trust us again. No, I said simply. Emma blinked. What? No, I'm not putting this behind us. I'm not pretending it was a misunderstanding. You lied to me, stole from me, damaged my credit, and threw me out of your lives when I got too close to discovering the truth. Derek's facade cracked. We came here to make peace. You came here to manipulate me into resuming my role as your financial safety net. I interrupted. Where did Derek's parents get the impression this was a misunderstanding? Did you tell them you deliberately stopped paying the mortgage for 3 months while pocketing the money? We needed that money for Emma started for what your savings account shows, luxury purchases, new furniture dinners out. You didn't need that money. You wanted it. Derek stood up, his false humility evaporating. You're really going to be this petty after everything we've done to try to make this right? You've done nothing to make this right, I said, standing to face him. You paid what you legally owed after I forced the issue. You haven't acknowledged the real harm. You haven't made amends. You've just shown up with flowers and fake tears expecting me to forget. You're unbelievable, Derek spat. Emma warned me you were bitter and controlling, but I didn't realize how bad it was. Emma gasped. Derek, no? She needs to hear this. He continued, pointing at me. You're a miserable old woman who can't stand to see her daughter happy. You're using this mortgage thing as an excuse to punish us for building a life that doesn't revolve around you. The projection was stunning. I almost laughed. Get out, I said quietly. Gladly, Derek snarled. He grabbed Emma's arm. Come on, we tried. No one can say we didn't try. Emma looked at me, her face a mixture of anger and something else. Fear, realization. For a moment, I thought she might say something might break away from Derek's script, but she didn't. She stood, adjusted Sophie on her hip, and walked to the door. You're choosing money over your granddaughter, she said, her voice cold. I hope you can live with that. Then they were gone. I stood in my silent living room, the roses mocking me from the table. My hands were shaking, but not from weakness, from rage. from vindication, from the absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. They'd shown their true selves. There would be no reconciliation because there had never been genuine remorse. I picked up the roses and threw them in the trash. The call came from Derek's mother 2 days later. I almost didn't answer. Another unknown number, but something told me this was important. Is this Barbara? The woman's voice was sharp, educated, controlled. Yes, this is Christine Torres, Derek's mother. I think we need to talk about what's really been happening with my son and your daughter. My pulse quickened. I'm listening. We gave them $12,000 to cover their mortgage arrears. Christine said Derek told us you'd had a mental health crisis and stopped paying out of spite. He said you were exhibiting signs of dementia and making irrational financial decisions. The audacity literally took my breath away. And that's a lie. I managed. I know Christine said crisply because yesterday I did something I should have done weeks ago. I called the mortgage company myself. I wanted to understand the full situation before giving them more money. And do you know what I discovered? Tell me that they stopped paying 3 months ago, that you had been covering payments automatically until you discovered their fraud, that there was no mental health crisis, just a mother protecting herself from financial exploitation. I sat down heavily. They told you I was mentally ill. Dementia was the word Derek used. Emma backed him up. They painted quite a picture. The confused, elderly mother, the beautiful children trying to manage her decline, the tragic situation. We felt terrible for them. Christine's voice hardened. We felt like fools when I learned the truth. What did they say when you confronted them? Derek tried to spin it as protecting me from unnecessary worry. Emma cried and said they were desperate. But Barbara, here's what you need to know. I've requested full financial documentation as a condition of any future help. And what I found, she paused. They've been spending recklessly. Designer purchases, expensive restaurants. A vacation to Hawaii they claimed was for Emma's postpartum recovery. They've been living beyond their means from day one. I suspected, I admitted there's more. I found evidence they've been applying for credit cards using Derek's father's information. We haven't been hit yet, but the applications are there. I think they plan to use him next after they'd exhausted you. The pattern crystallized. Emma and Derek weren't just opportunistic, they were systematic. They found vulnerable family members and extracted everything they could. What are you going to do? I asked. Derek's father and I are meeting with our attorney this afternoon. We're also meeting with Derek and Emma tonight at your house if you'll allow it. It's time for a come to Jesus meeting with all cards on the table. Why my house? Because you're the primary victim. Because you deserve to face them with backup. And because I suspect they've been telling you I'm on their side just like they told us you were mentally unstable. We need to shatter their ability to triangulate. That evening, my small living room became a courtroom. Marcus Chen sat beside me. I'd asked him to attend as my attorney. Across from us sat Emma and Derek, flanked by Derek's parents, Christine and Robert. The atmosphere was glacial. Let's start simply, Christine said. Derek, Emma explained to everyone here why you stopped paying the mortgage. Derek opened his mouth, but Emma spoke first. We were struggling financially. Your bank statements show $8,000 in discretionary spending during those 3 months. Christine interrupted. Try again. Emma's face crumbled. Mom was supposed to cover it. She's the co-signer. Supposed to, I said quietly. You explicitly told me I'd never have to pay anything. Things changed. Emma shot back. We had a baby. Costs went up. You were supposed to help us by lying to me. By letting me discover it accidentally. By throwing me out of your lives when I got close to the truth. We didn't throw you out, Derek insisted. We asked for space because you were interfering. You told Barbara she was no longer welcome. Marcus interjected, reading from his notes. Quote, "Don't come back. Derek doesn't want you around." That was your daughter's exact text. Robert Torres spoke for the first time. "Son, did you tell us Barbara was experiencing dementia?" Derek paused. We were trying to simplify. Yes or no? We thought she might be. Emma pleaded. She was acting so irrationally. Irrationally, I stood my voice, rising. I discovered you were stealing from me and I protected myself. That's not irrational. That's survival. You abandoned your own daughter. Emma screamed, finally dropping the victim act. What kind of mother does that? We needed you and you turned your back on us. You needed my money, I corrected coldly. You never needed me. When did you last ask about my life, my health? When did Sophie's birth become about my presence versus my presence? You used me until I was used up, then discarded me. The truth hung in the air, undeniable. Christine stood. Emma, Derek here are the facts. You committed fraud against Barbara. She has legal grounds to sue you. The only reason she hasn't is because she hoped you'd learn and change. But you haven't. You've escalated lying about her mental health, attempting to isolate her from truth tellers, and now we discover you've been attempting credit fraud against us, too. Derek's face went white. That wasn't... We were just exploring. Stop, Robert said wearily. Just stop lying. Emma looked at me, her eyes desperate. Mom, please, we're sorry. We'll do anything. Remove me from the mortgage, I said. Refinance in your names only. Pay me back the $8,400 you stole plus the $3,000 my credit repair will cost. Submit to a financial audit by Christine. And until all of that is complete, we have no relationship. That's not fair, Derek shouted. Fair. Marcus Chen smiled thinly. Mr. Torres, my client, is being extraordinarily generous. A lawsuit would cost you far more than compliance. The fight drained out of them. Emma sobbed. Derek stared at his hands. The empire of lies had collapsed. I'd won, but victory tasted like ash. The refinancing process took 6 weeks. During that time, Emma and Derek had no choice but to comply with every demand. They opened their finances to Christine's auditor, who discovered even more troubling patterns. Unpaid credit card balances alone from Derek's brother. They'd never mentioned bills and collections. They couldn't refinance under their own names. Their debt-to-income ratio was too high, their credit scores too damaged. The bank rejected their application 3 times. Christine delivered the news coldly. You'll have to sell the house. Emma called me hysterical. Mom, please. We have nowhere to go. Please talk to Christine. She'll listen to you. Tell her we just need more time. No, I said you made your choices. Now live with them. What about Sophie? She'll lose her home. Sophie will adapt. Children are resilient. Maybe she'll learn valuable lessons about responsibility from her parents' failure. The cruelty of my words surprised even me, but I felt no urge to soften them. They'd stolen from me, lied about me, tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. Mercy would only enable more exploitation. They listed the house in February. It sold in March. A buyer market meant they barely broke even after realtor fees and closing costs. They moved into a small apartment across town. Derek's parents refused to help with the deposit. Emma called me begging for money. I said no, but I did make sure the financial consequences followed them properly. With Marcus's help, I filed a civil suit for the $8,400 they'd stolen plus damages. They couldn't afford an attorney. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering garnishment of Derek's wages until the debt was repaid $300 per month for 3 years. Your Honor, Derek had pleaded, we have a child that $300 is groceries. You should have considered that before committing fraud, the judge replied dryly. The mortgage was refinanced into a qualified buyer's name. Technically, a sale that removed my liability. My credit score began its slow recovery. Christine's forensic accountant provided evidence of Derek's attempted identity theft against his own parents. Robert filed a police report. Derek wasn't arrested, but the investigation hung over him, destroying any chance of advancement at his job. Emma's life unraveled differently. Her part-time job had always been contingent on Derek's income supporting them. When money got tight, she had to increase her hours, but they couldn't afford daycare. She called me once, her voice broken. "Mom, I don't know what to do. I can't find Childare. Derek works days. I work evenings. We never see each other. Sophie cries all the time. This is all your fault." "My fault?" I said incredulously. "I didn't steal from anyone, Emma. I didn't lie to family. I didn't commit fraud. You could have helped us. I was helping you. I co-signed a $425,000 loan. That wasn't enough. You needed to steal more." She hung up on me. She tried calling back an hour later, but I'd blocked her number. I was done being her emotional dumping ground. Through Christine, who maintained minimal contact to monitor the situation, I learned the rest. Derek grew resentful of Emma, blaming her for not managing me better. Emma grew resentful of Derek for initiating the mortgage scheme. Their marriage became a battlefield of mutual blame. They separated in May. Emma moved into a studio apartment with Sophie. She had to sell most of their furniture to cover deposits. Derek moved back with his parents, who charged him rent and maintained strict financial oversight. His father forced him into credit counseling and Gamblers Anonymous. Apparently, Derek had a sports betting problem no one knew about. The life they'd built on stolen money and exploitation collapsed completely, and I watched it happen with cold satisfaction. Was I vindictive, perhaps, but I preferred to think of it as justice. Marcus Chen closed his file folder at our final meeting. "You know, Barbara, in 30 years of family law, I've rarely seen someone hold a boundary this firmly. Most parents cave when their children's suffering becomes visible. Their suffering is the consequence of their choices," I replied. "If I'd rescued them, they'd learn nothing. They'd just find another victim." He nodded approvingly. "You're right, and for what it's worth, you've likely saved Derek's next victim, whoever that would have been from similar exploitation." I hadn't thought about it that way, but he was right. Emma and Derek had been predators. Charming, family-oriented predators, but predators nonetheless. By refusing to be prey, by insisting on accountability, I'd broken their pattern. The final payment from the wage garnishment would arrive in 3 years, but my victory was already complete. I'd protected myself, exposed the truth, and ensured that actions had consequences. Some people might call me harsh, unforgiving, a woman who chose money over family. But I knew the truth. I'd chosen dignity over exploitation, respect over manipulation, self-preservation over martyrdom. And I would make that choice again in a heartbeat. 2 years after the lawsuit, my life looked completely different and infinitely better. I'd sold my old house, the one filled with memories of Emma's childhood, and downsized to a charming condo in a senior community near the coast. My mortgage was tiny. My savings, no longer drained by Emma and Derek's schemes, had recovered. I'd even started traveling, something I'd always deferred for someday. I spent 3 weeks in Italy that spring, eating pasta in Rome, walking the hills of Tuscany, learning terrible Italian from patient shopkeepers. I went with a tour group and made friends, other women my age who'd also reclaimed their lives after various forms of family trauma. My daughter wanted me to fund her failed business indefinitely. Martha told me over wine in Florence. I finally said no. Best decision of my life. We understood each other. We were women who'd learned that love without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Back home, I volunteered at the hospital where I'd once worked. I mentored young nurses sharing 3 decades of experience. I joined a book club. I took up watercolor painting. I learned to play mahjong. I adopted a rescue dog named Pepper, who slept at the foot of my bed and greeted me with pure joy every morning. My life was full, peaceful mine. Helen visited often. We'd grown closer through the crisis. She was no longer just my sister, but my best friend. Christine Torres and I met for lunch occasionally. We'd bonded over our shared experience of being exploited by our children. She was navigating her own recovery, having cut Derek off completely after the identity theft attempt. Robert wants to reconcile with Derek, she told me once. Fathers and sons, you know, but I won't. Some betrayals are unforgivable. I understood. I'd made peace with the possibility that I might never see Emma or Sophie again. It hurt less than I'd expected. The grief had been sharpest in the beginning. Now it was more like a scar present but not painful. Meanwhile, Emma and Derek's lives spiraled further downward. Through Christine's occasional updates, she maintained minimal contact through Derek. I learned that Derek had been fired from his sales job. His gambling problem had worsened. He'd been caught using company funds to place bets. He avoided prosecution only by agreeing to repayment and immediate termination. He now worked warehouse night shifts, barely making minimum wage. Emma had tried to rebuild. She'd gotten a full-time job at a call center, but the stress of single motherhood and financial instability took its toll. Sophie, now 3 years old, was having behavioral issues at daycare, likely from the chaos at home. Emma had gained weight, looked exhausted in the photo scene reluctantly shared. She'd aged a decade in 2 years. They'd tried to reconcile briefly, moving back in together to save money. It lasted 4 months before collapsing again. Derek had been seeing someone else, a woman he'd met at Gamblers Anonymous. Ironically, Emma discovered text and threw him out. The divorce was finalized last month. Emma had tried reaching out to me twice. Once on my birthday, a text that said simply, "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. The second time was last Christmas. A card arrived with a photo of Sophie. On the back, Emma's handwriting. She asks about you sometimes. I tell her, "You love her, but you're far away. Maybe someday we can fix this." I kept the photo. Sophie looked like Emma had at that age. Same bright eyes, same curious expression. My heart ached, but I didn't respond because someday we can fix this. Still placed the burden on me. Still suggested that I was the one who needed to bend to forgive without true amends to resume my role as emotional and financial support. Emma still didn't understand that she'd shattered something irreparable. Trust once broken so thoroughly doesn't simply heal with time and wishful thinking. My therapist, yes, I'd started therapy to process. Everything helped me see it clearly. She wants forgiveness without change. Dr. Morrison said she wants you back in her life on her terms. But what about your terms? What about your peace? My terms were clear. I deserved a life free from exploitation. I deserved relationships built on honesty and reciprocity. I deserved to be seen as a whole person, not just a resource to be drained. And I had that life now. I woke up every morning without dread. I made plans without worrying who'd disrupt them. I spent money on myself without guilt. I existed for myself not as someone's mother, not as someone's financial safety net, just as Barbara, a woman of worth, independent and whole. Did I think about Emma sometimes? Of course. Did I wonder about Sophie's development, her first words, her personality constantly? Did I mourn the grandmother relationship I'd lost? Yes. But I didn't regret my choices. Not for a moment, because the alternative continuing to enable theft, lies, and exploitation would have destroyed me. And I'd worked too hard, survived too much to let anyone destroy me, not even my own daughter. My life wasn't what I'd imagined, but it was honest. It was peaceful. It was mine. And that was enough. So what did I learn from all this? That love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. That family doesn't give anyone permission to exploit you. that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the consequences of their choices. That sacrifice without reciprocity is just martyrdom, that you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Most importantly, I learned that you teach people how to treat you. For years, I taught Emma that I'd absorb any hurt, forgive any betrayal, sacrifice anything. She learned that lesson well. Now I've taught her something different, that I have value, that I matter, that there are lines that once crossed change everything. Am I bitter? No, I'm free. Would I have done anything differently? Not a single thing. What would you have done in my position? Would you have forgiven them? Would you have continued enabling, or would you have drawn the line? Think about the people in your life who take and take and take. Think about the boundaries you haven't set because you're afraid of conflict, afraid of loss, afraid of being called selfish. Then ask yourself, what is your peace worth? If this story resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell me your experience. Tell me if you'd have made different choices. I genuinely like to know. And if you're facing something similar, someone exploiting your love, your generosity, your sense of obligation, please know this. You deserve better. You deserve honesty, reciprocity, and respect. Don't be afraid to demand it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find the courage to protect themselves because you're worth protecting always.